Politicians like to endear themselves to whatever group they find themselves among. I mean, that's no secret. A tidbit, a story, something that connects them to their audience. Something that says, I know about you. We have shared experiences. Which explains why President Joe Biden said this yesterday during his 2-hour stop at the National Interagency Fire Center.
I used to tell Frank Church this. My first job offer where my wife, deceased wife, and I wanted to move to Idaho because we think, not a joke, it's such a beautiful, beautiful state. And I interviewed for a job with Boise Cascade. And in the meantime, there was a war going on. Anyway, but the whole point was that I used to always kid Frank.
Well, President Biden tried to get a job at Boise Cascade, right? Well, obviously he didn't take it because that's not where he is now. One of the cool things we learned from Biden's brief time in Boise yesterday. But that 25-second anecdote that was then fact-checked by the New York Post. And they came out with this about an hour later, tweeting, Biden claims first job offer from Idaho Lumber Company, but it's news to them. The Post said they reached out to the company, Boise Cascade, and were told, we have no record of President Biden's application or of him having worked for the company. We checked our system internally and nothing has turned up. And that tweet, that headline, was picked up and passed around social media and other partisan outlets, lining it up against other times that President Biden claimed things that weren't exactly true. So therefore, this also must not be true. But buried deep in that article was this nugget from the company spokesperson, Lisa Chample. We had a diverse portfolio in the 60s and early 70s, so my guess is any records have been purged or transferred for the business's projects we are no longer involved in. So that headline, it's news to them, well, the company has no record of it. It's a bit misleading. And we get it. It's the New York Post. That's kind of what they do. But let's break this down with a little help from the Boise Cascade Company. It was formed in 1957 when the Boise Payette Lumber Company and the Cascade Lumber Company, they merged to become Boise Cascade. At that time, known as Boise Cascade Corporation. And in those early years, they had a very diverse portfolio. According to Chample, not just forest products. They had businesses that were under the umbrella that included concrete, plastics, textiles, even motor home manufacturing. And over the years, those branches were, well, trimmed. And when that happened, the new owners would get all the records and the paperwork that went with them. Then in the early 2000s, the company went through some restructuring. Remember when they bought OfficeMax and changed their name to that? Remember that? Well, that didn't last long because in 2004, OfficeMax sold the paper, forest products, and timber interest to a private equity firm who then renamed those assets Boise Cascade LLC. So imagine the paper trail, no pun intended, to find records from the early 70s, which is basically the answer we got from Boise Cascade today when we asked for some clarification on that. And adding to that brief trip down memory lane, Chample told us today the company went public as Boise Cascade Company in 2013. So, long story short, Boise Cascade Company does not have job applications from 50 years ago. So we can neither prove nor disprove President Biden's statement. So unless President Biden has kept a hard copy of every job offer he's ever had, well, it's likely going to remain unproven. Or does it matter? We'd be remiss if we didn't remind you, though, of this thread as well. And maybe this Boise Cascade connection will help some of you sleep at night. In 2005, NBC began airing a television show called The Office. Yep, it was a show about paper products company. And in the show, Boise Cascade products, then known simply as Boise, right there, were prominently displayed in several episodes, like this one, where they come up with a jingle for a commercial and Daryl plays his keyboard on top of those said boxes. Well, in The Office, Dunder Mifflin, is located in Scranton, Pennsylvania, the hometown of a future president who claims to have once had a job offer from Boise Cascade. The layers are endless.